Well, good morning. We're climbing a hillside today with our tripod. We're working on a headstone that's fallen into a planting. We're going to take a look at what it looks like when you plant flowers and shrubs around a headstone and the damage that can do to it. So the one thing that we've got going for us here is this is level. This is already all set. It's in place. There's nothing that I need to do here. I'm not going to touch this. We're going to get this headstone out. But this is the problem. It's buried, and so we're going to do a little bit of digging. I'm going to get the hoist out to get this up. I'm guessing this came down from a tree. Probably the only logical thought here, but there doesn't seem to be any damage on this. So I'm not sure what happened. When you're digging like this, you want to make sure that your blade or your bar is back away from the stone, and you're putting this dirt in front of that so it provides a buffer, because this is gray marble and this will scratch up really easily. So you want to make sure that when you're doing this, you stay away from the stone. So what I was doing was I was back a couple inches and I was using that dirt as a buffer between it so we don't scratch this up. Hauling out headstones like this when they're buried is actually kind of fun, but it's much more challenging when you've got flowers and plantings and things like that in place. But you have to be a little bit more careful, and you have to watch out for the roots and the plants and the headstone, because you don't want to scratch it, you don't want to break it. So this is where plantings around headstones can become a little bit more challenging, and for somebody that's doing conservation work, you have to be a little bit more thoughtful with this. It makes it a bit more challenging. This headstone is of Frank Rodgers, and he was killed from reckless operation of a freight train in 1905. And as you can see here, the headstone was essentially missing. I stumbled across it as I was walking through this area, and I couldn't see it, and so I started walking through the lilies that were here. You know, seeing this out of the dirt for the first time in who knows how many years. It's been buried 6-8 inches for a really long time, so it's really special for me to see this sitting up here and making sure that we can get this back and get this person honored again by having their headstone back in place. By cleaning our mating surface, we're going to have a great clean surface that's prepped and ready for our bonding. We'll have an epoxy in here, and we'll have monument setting compound to make sure that this doesn't easily go over again. This originally did have a pin. You can see the hole that's right here. It's about 2 inches up in there. I just want to clean the mud out of there. I want to make sure that there's nothing hiding up in there that's going to cause problems when we go to bond it. Frank was born in 1872 in Franklin County, Pennsylvania, and he worked as a fireman for the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad. He married Clara Mary Pietzman Arrowwood on March 1st, 1905 in St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Des Moines, Iowa. This was Frank's first marriage, but Clara's second. Now, even though the lower base was in place and the upper base was in place, we still need to take them apart to clean the surfaces. If we don't clean these surfaces, this will just fall over or slide away with time. Gravity is certainly our friend. And so being level, it's probably fine, but as long as we're going to this work and this effort, it's important that we do it right. You can see just how far this sunk into the ground. You can just see all the dirt 3/4 of the way up the stone here. It's just really sat down in there really deep. In addition to the monument setting compound, the epoxy, we're going to put some lead wedge in there. These are spacers. We don't want any of the material to squeeze out too far. We want to have some material stay in between these stones to create that bond. So we're going to put a couple of these, one on each of the corners. Using just 2 hardwood blocks, I'm going to be able to use a fulcrum to get this up. I'm going to pull out my spacers that are here and then drop this down onto the compound. So we pull out a spacer, use a piece of monument setting compound to make up that gap, and then pull it out. And then now this is going to use the weight of the stone to squeeze out this material, and it'll ultimately sit down onto that wedge lead. We'll do the same on this side. Just 6 months after their marriage in September, an accident occurred on the railroad. A collision of a freight train and a passenger train between the railroad's depot and the Iowa River Bridge occurred. This was because of slow watches from several of the engineers along with a number of other errors. This caused conflicting train schedules and ultimately a collision. Some watches for a number of different people were slow. 13 people were injured, and Frank died from his injuries on September 30th, 1905. All right, everything's up and looking really good. Pretty solid position. We need to fine tune it just a little bit. We're gonna get our lead wedge in, which I've got back here. I have left my hoist on here as a safety. It's loose, but sometimes I like to have that up there just in case.